Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Rama, Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. 1, 2, 3. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Bol, Hare Bol, Hare Bol, Hare Bol. Nita Gaur, Hare Bol, Hare Bol, Hare Bol, Nita Gaur, Hare Bol, Nita Gaur. Nita Gaur, Hare Bol, Hare Bol, Hare Bol, Nita Gaur, Hare Bol, Nita Gaur, Hare. Nita Gaur, Hare Bol, Hare Bol, Hare Bol, Nita Gaur, Hare Bol. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada. Jaya Misunda, Pramanda Brahmacharya, Satara Sarasi, Simachla, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai, Namachai Siddhas Thakur Ki Jai. All glories to seven devotees, glories to seven devotees, all glories to seven devotees, all glories to Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. What happened to my Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. The book. Indriyani Paranyahur. Indriyeva Paramanaha. Manasastu Parabudir. Yobudi Paratastu Saha. Indriyani Paranyahur. Ideva Panamnana. Manasastu Parabudir. Yobudi Paratastu Saha. Indriyani Paran. Yubade Paratas. Maybe lady, somebody from the lady side. Indriyani Paranyahur. Eva Panam. Shastra Budir. Let us move forward. The working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is higher than the mind, and he, the soul, is even higher than intelligence. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The senses are different outlets for the activities of lust. Lust is reserved within the body, so it is given vent through the senses. Therefore, the senses are superior to the body as a whole. These outlets are not in use when the superior consciousness or Krishna consciousness. In Krishna consciousness, the soul makes direct connection with Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the hierarchy of bodily functions as described here ultimately ends in the Supreme Soul. Bodily action means the function of the senses. Stopping the senses means stopping all bodily action. But since the mind is active, then even though the body may be silent and at rest, the mind will act as it does in dreaming. But above the mind is a determination of the intelligence, and above the intelligence is the soul proper. If therefore the soul is directly engaged with the Supreme, naturally all other subordinates, namely the intelligence, mind, and senses, will automatically engaged. Katha Upanishad, there is a similar passage in which it is said that the objects of sense gratification are superior to the senses. Mind is superior to the sense objects. If therefore the mind is directly engaged in the service of the Lord constantly, then there is no chance that the senses will become engaged in other ways. This mental attitude has already been explained. Param drishtva nivartate. So mind is engaged in transcendental service of the Lord, then there's no chance of its being engaged in lower propensities. Katha Upanishad, the soul has been described as Mahan, the great. Therefore, the soul is above all, namely the sense objects, the senses, the mind, and the intelligence. Therefore, directly understanding the constitutional position of the soul is a solution to the whole problem. With intelligence, one has to check out the constitutional position of the soul and engage the mind always in Krishna consciousness. That solves the whole problem. Neophyte spiritualists is generally advised to keep aloof from the options of the senses, but aside from that, one has to strengthen the mind by use of intelligence. If by intelligence one engages one's mind in Krishna consciousness by complete surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then automatically the mind becomes stronger, and even though the senses are strong like serpents, they will not be more effective than serpents with broken fangs. But even though the soul is mass of intelligence and mind, senses are also still, unless it is strengthened by the association with Krishna consciousness. There's every chance of falling down to agitated mind. Sri Chaitanya Mano Vistam Sapitavina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Go Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna Krishna. Hare Krishna. So, let us study this verse as it is given here. So, Indriyani Pradhani, watch very carefully, because this is a demonstration. So, the working senses are superior to dull matter. Well, let's do the following thing. Yeah, give. Okay. So, Bhumya Aponalo Vayu Kam Manu Puri Evacha. Krishna says that the body is constructed out of two parts, basically speaking. The gross body, Stula Sarira, and the subtle body, mind, intelligence, false ego. And then beyond it is a self. This is the body. Earth, water, fire, air. Either. This is the mind. Thinking, feeling, willing. Sak. This is the intelligence, right? Intelligence. Steady. And this is the false ego that we identify with mind, or intelligence, mind, and body. And this is you. This is the soul. All right. There you have the whole thing. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego, and the soul. All in one place. It's very simple. You can make this demonstration everywhere. If you talk to a fellow that has no idea, to your mother, why you joined the Hare Krishna movement, he said, because, you see, when I leave the body, I want to leave the body behind, the mind behind, the intelligence behind, the false ego behind, and I want to fly. Otherwise, I have to come back and go with my mind, my intelligence, my false ego into another body. Very simple, the whole thing. So let's talk about the different components. You have earth, water, fire, air. Earth is also the medium. It's a medium, like human being or any kind of living entity that has 4 legs, even a snake, must use earth as a medium. If I'm suspended in the air, say half a foot, I cannot walk, I cannot move. You need the earth as a medium. Humans, quadruples, and all these need the earth as a medium. Now earth, water, fire. What is water? What is the medium water for? For who? Fishes. Boats, ships. If there's no water there, they don't have a way to travel. Earth, water, fire. Fire is a medium for living entities that live in the fire. It is absolutely necessary for them to have that medium, earth, water, fire, air. What is the element air the medium for? Birds, airplanes. Airplane cannot fly. It is pushed like this, a strong engine, the wing is like this, and therefore it rises. That's the whole system. Earth, water, fire, either. What is either the medium for? Sound. Like it would be impossible to send radio messages from the space station to the Earth without the medium of space. That's why ether is also sometimes called space. It's a medium, but it grows. It still grows. It's very subtle, but it still grows. So earth, water, fire, ether. Then you have the mind. Let's talk about the function of the mind to clearly understand what it is. Mind is still considered the sixth sense, and it is emotional life. Sometimes you're very happy, and sometimes you're very distressed. It works like a sinus curve, always like this. What is that verse? The mind, this one verse in Bhagavad Gita doesn't come to me. The mind, what is that verse? It changes like summer and winter season. That one changes like summer. One should not be well. Matras Prashastu County, that happens when you're 75 years old. Congratulations. Matras Prashastu County, Ashitoshna Sukadugada, Agama Paino Nityas, Tam Stitik Shasvabhara. The temporary appearance of happiness and distress is like coming and going of summer and winter season. That is derived from sense perception and must learn control without being distressed. So that's it. There's a famous song of the Negro community, of the black community. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen, only, or nobody knows but Jesus. Sometimes I'm up, sometimes I'm down, oh yes, Lord. Sometimes I'm really on the ground, oh yes, Lord. What does that mean? That he's on the mental platform, right? He's on the mental platform. That's why he sings that. Sometimes I'm up and down. That means you're on the mental platform. Your consciousness is on the mental platform. You see, mind. Thinking, feeling, I think this, I think that, I feel this, I feel that, it feels good. Our previous president in America said, why did you go to Iraq for war? He said, it feels good. If it feels good, do it. If you can never advance in spiritual life like that if it feels good. So that's the mind is always changing, always changing. Sometimes you're happy, sometimes you're stressed, sometimes you feel really ecstatic in kirtan, and sometimes you feel miserable. Isn't it? Anybody who feels like that, please lift up your hand. See? Look around, because it's very important to know when you're down, you're not alone. The guy next door is exactly in the same situation. So lift up your hand. See, everybody unanimously goes through these changes. So don't be worried if you're down there. The bad part is always the beginning of the good part. And the good part is always the beginning of the bad part. My father used to say, after every tunnel, there's light. Light must be. So that's the mind. Now the intelligence is here. It takes a false ego out. Intelligence is what keeps the mind steady. Intelligence is steady. Like, for example, you feel good or bad, you know you are an Indian citizen. Because that's an appreciation on the intelligent platform. You are this and that, you live in this town. It doesn't depend on the mind, on the emotions of the mind. It's perceived by the intelligence and kept in the intelligence, these conceptions, you know. So therefore, it is important to use the intelligence to control the mind, because intelligence is steady. Say, for example, you come home in the evening. I put this up to make it a little bit more graphic. Hold on. You come at home in the evening, and it's late. You have to go to the university tomorrow at 9 o'clock. You have to get up at 6. This is a scenario. You come home, you turn on the light, and the senses, the nose smells. There's a beautiful smell coming from the kitchen, right? You follow that smell, and you open the fridge, and there you see, with your eyes, nose and eyes, pizza. Wow, I want to eat something. Senses said, yes, come on, eat, eat. Mind says, yes, it feels good, come on. Intelligence said, where is the intelligence? Oh. Okay, got it. Intelligence said, don't do that, because you have to get up early in the morning. Oh, come on, just a little piece, the senses said, just a little. Don't be so harsh on yourself. Take it easy, baby, take it as it comes. Mind also says, yes, it feels so good, come on, just a little bit. Intelligence says, no, not going to happen. I'm not going to, because I have to go to the university early in the morning. I've got to get up. But the senses keep on going, nagging. Mind is nagging. They are always together in every process in human life. Mind, they're like two guys together, always, mind and a sense, like this. So they work together. Mind is saying, yes, come on, just a little bit. And I say finally, intelligence says, all right, just a little bit. You take a little bit, and then you eat the whole pizza. Because the mind and senses conquer the intelligence. You see this? Very easy. Very easy. Once you understand this, what happens every time you want to win the Olympics. So you race in the racing tracks. The body says, I'm tired. You have done enough. Mind says also, I want to go home. And the intelligence, don't do that. You're going to race. And so if the intelligence pervades in all our actions over the demands, endless demands of the mind and the senses and the mind, then we can achieve something, no matter what it is. In the material world, in your study, if you listen to your mind and to your senses, you just lie in the lawns of the university and sleep. If you listen to intelligence, they say, come on, it's now. People who do not listen to their intelligence, they don't achieve anything in material life. And ultimately, they have to join the labor force. They have to work in the street or something because they don't listen to the intelligence, or they simply don't have that type of intelligence. It's very simple. Everybody understands so far? You see, very easy. Now comes the false ego, which is what is here. All right. False ego mind means we identify with the body, the mind, and the intelligence. False ego means I'm Indian, I'm American, I'm this, I'm that. I'm so many upadhis. And ultimately, we know Sarvapadi, Vinay Muktam, all these upadhis should be given up because we are neither the senses, nor the mind, nor the intelligence, nor the false ego. We are the real ego. Wait. The soul. Very simple. Once you understand this, how simple the whole thing actually is. What happens now when we dream? Prabhupada said in Bhagavatam 4:12-18, one can experience the distinction between the subtle and the gross body even in daily life. This here, the gross body, is called Stula Sarira. The subtle body, this piece here that I can lift up, is called Linga Sarira. Stula Sarira, 5 elements, earth, water, fire, air, either mind, Buddhi Sarira, Mana Sarira, Buddhi Sarira, intelligence, and ultimately Ahankara. This is Linga Sarira, these 3 things. So Prabhupada said, one can understand, one can experience the distinction between the subtle body and gross body even daily. In a dream, one's gross body is lying on the bed while the subtle body carries the soul, the living entity, to another atmosphere. Watch this. What happens? That's what happens. See? The subtle body travels with the soul from one destination to another. And it can be quite graphic. I give you a very graphic example. In Ireland, we bought an island in the middle of a lake, very beautiful place. And so it was done undercover because obviously, and I heard this later from the owner, if you would have told me, hi, Krishna, I would have sell it to you, right? So it went undercover with a lawyer. And but I couldn't wait to go there. So I went and I admitted to the owner that I'm the buyer, but I didn't tell who I was. I was wearing a wig, perfect tie, everything, perfect picture. And I said, I can't tell. He said, who are you? I said, you see, I'm a public person. And so I prefer not to reveal my identity because some or other hits the media before we even get to it to sign the contract. So he accepted that. And so at night I flew there. I was obsessed by the idea to buy this island for Krishna, obsessed. I flew there and I saw the island coming. I went inside. Here was the green room, sitting room. There was a piano. There was this, there was that. I went into the kitchen. There was a kitchen. There was another room for gathering, eating, dining room. I went upstairs. I saw the whole thing. So when I woke up, I got up and made a plan. First floor, second floor. Everything was there. It's the truth, and nothing but the truth. So everything was there. And then I explained to the devotee, is this how that thing looks? Because it is a reality that the soul can go like this. It can travel, at night. And most of the time, we are not conscious of it, but yogis can. It's also called Astral Travel. I'll show you. Is this computer connected there? Yes. I show you. Where's the mouse? The mouse. I'll show you a picture. And the mouse does not work.
Will it work on this?
Wait. I have to close this. I have to close that. Watch it, what happens. You see that? Can everybody see that? You see that the body is lying on the ground. The subtle body is up there. This actually happens. That's the reality of it. It's not some idea or Prithu's fantasy. This is actually what happens when we dream. And I show you something more. Here. We have that one. There you have it. You see that? And there's a cord there. There's actually, it's connected with a cord. Now this cord is not gross, it is subtle. It is a subtle cord. It connects the body to the soul, to the subtle body. Just like, for example, no matter how drunk a person is, he will find his door. How many doors there in Bangalore, Pune? Thousands. But he will go there, no matter how drunk he is, because he's connected due to attachment. So attachment, it is attachment that keeps the body tied, the subtle body tied to the gross body. And when the gross body is sufficiently deteriorated, the soul is cut. And he goes from here into another body, like that. As soon as that cord is cut. And it's interesting that even in the Bible, it says, not 100% sure whether this is actually the relationship, but it's very striking. Remember him before the silver cord is severed. The Buddhists call this a silver cord. And so it's also before that cord is cut. Yam yam vapimar svaram bhavam tyajati antikalevaram. Whatever you remember at the time, go. If you better, you remember Krishna. If you remember Krishna, you go to Krishna. So we remember him before the silver cord is severed or the golden bowl is broken, etc., etc. It's not so important. But you see, that's what happens, you see. You can see, everybody sees that? Everybody sees that? Very graphic, you know, how the subtle body is traveling with the soul into another, into space, basically speaking. Prabhupada said one time that sometimes you may even go to the moon. And he said that if you would shake your bed sheet, you could actually find moon dust, he said. No use to go to the moon. You can collect it by just going there with your subtle body. Like, I mean, if you go to America, there's in Washington, the National Air and Space Museum. And there's a rock, a moon rock. There's a huge crowd of people standing, waiting in line to stand and see the moon rock and worship the moon rock, which is from the desert of Arizona, probably. You know, so we can go like this from one body to another. We understand now what can happen when we sleep, when we dream. Now the next question is, what happens when we leave the body? And that's very simple. You see, the gross body, which is like a house, is so deteriorated, although you're attached to this house, although you're attached to this body, it is finished. Then that means the cord is cut. And you go from here into another body. Bang. Here you are in the human form. Here you find yourself in the form of a buffalo. Right? You forget everything you know from the past life. You may. If you are another human being, you may remember. Or you take, as it says in the Bhagavad Gita, it takes this. What is these verses in the 15th chapter? Let me just read. 15th chapter. This is the one that explains this. Hold on. 15, 16. There we are. The living entity, listen to this. It's amazing what Prabhupada says here. The living entity takes another body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, nose, tongue, which are all grouped around the mind, thus enjoys a particular set of senses. So we're taking the subtle impressions of our previous life into the new body. That is what happens here. So therefore, nobody can be a famous musician without having the impressions from a previous life. Prabhupada said Ravi Shankar was a musician 7 lifetimes. And people think it's a great idea to be a great musician. It is not actually, it's a curse. Because you're so attached that you, in the next life, you veer towards him. Albert Einstein, he could solve material calculations in 7 years, 4 years, even 5 years, previous life. In this way, these souls, they take their qualities from one life to another. From childhood, they're crawling towards the guitar like the Beatles, you know, from childhood, because there's something there. Mozart, everybody heard about Mozart, great composer. He could write beautiful music with 4 years. With 4 years. And the amazing thing about Mozart that none of you knows, that in his whole work, there's not one correction. You cannot write without corrections. It's impossible. You see, this is not exactly perfect. How is it that he never corrected any one of his works? You know what his answer? Somebody said, you're a great musician, composer. You're a great composer. He said, I'm not. He said, I'm just a secretary. He said, it is dictated to me from within. It is dictated, super soul. It is dictated to me from within. It's very significant. Savasya Chamadidi Sanivistu Matasmitya Jnanam Apunamcha. I'm in the heart of all creatures. For me alone comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. You see, the super soul is very musical, can write beautiful music. He was just a secretary, he was honest. That without the super soul, you cannot do anything. Like, I'm not this body. Everybody accept that, right? How do I feel that there's right now an itch on my nose? How is it possible? I'm not the body. Because as the sun penetrates the universe with light, the soul penetrates the body with consciousness. So I'm conscious of the body, but I can really not move the body because I'm not the doer. Not. Krishna is the doer. I'm not the car, I'm the passenger, and I'm not the operator of the car either. You see, I'm just a passenger. So how does a hand go from here to there? Think about that. I, the soul, sitting in this body and feel there's an itch on my nose. Krishna fulfills all desires, the super soul. What is this verse? Man proposes, God disposes, is what he says. So Krishna understands, super soul fulfills all desires, nitya nityananam, chaitana chaitananam. So he understands my desire that Prithu wants to scratch his nose. So Krishna goes to the telephone and says, hello, Bhagavan ki jai. Can you please move his hands? Yes, Bhagavan. Within split seconds, the desires of the soul within its karma, not that you say, I want to touch the moon and the hand goes to the moon. You don't have that karma. Nor can you say, I would like to fly. You don't have the karma. Even material sense, you can fly if you have money, right? So within its karma and its destiny, you can do that. You can scratch with the help of the super soul. And that goes within seconds. Look at this. All this is done. The desire of the super soul to touch my toe is only possible. The desire of the soul to touch the soul only possible because of the super soul. We cannot see without the super soul. We cannot hear without the super soul. We cannot touch without the super soul. That's why Prabhupada said when he left the body, everything moving and non-moving, there's nothing but Krishna. There you have it. We are just the instruments. We are not the we are just the instruments. So everything moves. Krishna is doing, he's a mover. Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam, the controller of all living beings. He sits in his heart. Brahmayam, You can read this up. Brahmayan Sarva. He moves everyone. He's a mover. We are just observing how the body moves under the control of the super soul. But people are so atheist. They think, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And they're proud of their activities. Whereas the fact is that if the super soul withdraws knowledge from him, every super intelligent speaker will turn into a mumbling fool from one moment to another. From one moment to another. I give you an example. In my school, in generally, there's some people sit in front. Every time the teacher has a question, they're the ones. In Germany, they call it Streber. And I was always on the last bench. All the bad boys sit in the back, right? And so it was a boarding school. It was a very good boarding school. And I had to share the room. In last class, you share the room with somebody. And this was one of these guys. He drove me nuts, because he was always busy. And so when we left the school, everybody had to make a speech. Teachers were there, parents were there, and most people, they said something. I said, well, to be honest, I'm glad to be out of here. that I can leave. So he stood in front of the mirror. I saw it and was rehearsing his facial expressions, his television facial expression, to give a great speech. He was, ladies and gentlemen, today is the day, the luckiest day of my life, and on and on and on. Okay, better like this. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so glad. And he was rehearsing. So now comes the moment he would speak. Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, today is the day. Krishna cut him off. Because he was so puffed up. He was so puffed up. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, and he fell from the podium. And he said, right beside me. And I said, I didn't know. All the boys were clapping. I didn't know you have such a sense of humor. I was putting salt into the moon, right? And he was so destroyed, practically speaking. So I couldn't help it, to say, I didn't know we had such a sense of humor. Congratulations, it was a great speech. So you see how dependent we are on the super soul. One who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me. I'm never lost to him, nor is he ever lost to me. We have forgotten that actually all our bodily functions are controlled by the super soul. We're not the controller. We're just the messenger. Man proposes, God disposes. People say that. I've heard this from childhood from my parents, but to understand it deeply, this you have to read Bhagavad Gita, right? You have to read Bhagavad Gita where clearly these things are explained, how everything is moved by God. So here you see, when even doing simple things, every time the super soul is there, and when we die, the cord is cut and we go into another body. Now, what happens if somebody commits suicide? He stands on top of a mountain, a hill, a tower, and he wants to jump. What happens is the senses and the mind tell him, jump. Intelligence said, don't do that. It goes back and forth, back and forth. Sometimes they stand hours. They cannot make up their mind, because to make up your mind, how do you make up your mind? By the help of the intelligence. That makes up the mind, nothing else. So in America, my father-in-law told me that he was standing in traffic. All of a sudden, the whole traffic stopped. And everybody walked outside the car and looked up. So we walked out, we saw there was a man standing on the tower. And he was exactly in this situation. He was so unhappy in his mind. Intelligence told him, don't do that, don't do that. Everybody lost patience of the onlookers. And he screamed, jump! Only in America. Hundreds of people started shouting, jump, jump, jump. Huge crowd of people. He jumped. And some people started clapping and said, now we can go home. We saw how somebody jumped from a tower. Great story. This is welcome to the United States of America. Everything is like in a movie, right? Everything is like in a movie. Nothing is real, you know? So that's what happens. And I tell you, I had a friend that was a medic in a helicopter. They fly if there's an emergency. And they get a message, there's somebody standing on the television tower who wants to jump. See if you can get him. So he flew close and gave a speech. We're not going to disturb you. We just want to tell you one thing. Don't worry. We're not going to touch you. So the boy was lowered on a rope, stood there and said, I give you 3 seconds. Jump or come with me. Because he knew in 3 seconds, nobody can make up his mind. Right? He knew that. So he said, all right, I come. Right? Because the intelligence got support from this external source to become strong, to be able to make up the mind of this person. Very simple. This medic was very intelligent. He said it takes longer till you. And then what happens? You see, you go out, the cord is cut, but because your mind is not on another body, you're still here and you cannot find a body. You have to eat. You have to sleep. You have to do all these things, even sex. You want to, but you can't. That's why in Buddhist philosophy, they're called the hungry ghost. They're hungry. And so they try to enjoy through another body. And that's only possible if a person is disturbed in his mind, insane, intoxicated. That's the time when a ghost actually is able to enter into this body, to enjoy eating, sleeping, sex, and defense. And if he's successful and can actually make his home there, they said this person is, they call it multiple personality disorder in psychology, schizophrenic, you know. There's a blind passenger on board, you know. And sometimes you may even feel when you sleep at night, all of a sudden, something there, you know, something pressing, you know, something that you feel even strangulated. And this is the power of ghosts. And therefore, it is important to live as cows, because wherever there are cows, there are no ghosts. Some other, no ghosts where there are cows. Even when you hear the dogs howling at night, why are they howling? They can perceive ghosts, right? And so, put it here. So this is a common phenomenon that somebody is possessed. And then some tantric may be able to remove this power out of a person and normalize the person. It's very simple. The cord is violently ripped by him jumping from the roof. He's separated. The body is here lying on the ground and he's still there, hovering in the air. That's exactly what happens if somebody is possessed by a ghost. So we understand now what happens when body is going from one person is going from one body to another. We can understand when a person dreams and enters another body, wherever the mind at the time of death is, here you go, here we go, here we are in another body. Now comes the final question. What happens when we go back to Godhead? I need somebody who shall do that. Yourself. Yourself. He sings very enthusiastically. You have to catch the banana. This is God for a moment. When, this is the final sentence of the lecture, when we leave the body to go back to Godhead, this happens like a rocket. One stage after the other is left behind. You leave the gross body, Stula Sarira, earth, water, fire, air, ether, behind. You leave the mind behind. You leave the intelligence behind. You leave the false ego behind. And the soul did my best. But Krishna does the rest. You see, this is a very divine principle. We have to do our best, and Krishna does the rest. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Go Premananda Haribol. So anybody has a... Okay. It is now clear to everybody. It's very clear, isn't it? All these verses, very, very clear, penetrate. You have to just think about a verse from Bhagavad Gita long enough and you get it, you get it. Krishna will give you the intelligence. There's very deep meaning. Sometimes we don't understand the verse on the surface, but you can go very deep in that thing. And that's what we did right now. Where's the soul? So, who wants the soul? Any question? Yes.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji, for very wonderful class. Prabhuji, my question is like, you mentioned about that some people, they commit suicide and they try to jump from the mountain and they want to finish their life. But in case of devotees, like I heard many stories of Prabhupada disciples, some of them, they also did same thing. And in scriptures also.
He has to translate. What does he say?
Prabhupada disciples? They did same thing. One of them, they committed suicide.
Prabhupada disciples committed suicide. Some.
Yeah.
And in scriptures also, these incidences we find, like in CC, we read about Chota Haridas. So my question is,
Chota Haridas also committed suicide.
So bro, we say that Krishna consciousness is full of joy and happiness. So why a devotee who is in the movement, he has to do such a thing? Can you please explain to me? Hare
Krishna
Krishna.
consciousness is full of happiness, then why devotee? Krishna consciousness is full of happiness, then why devotees are committing suicide?
Suicide, you know, if somebody is depressed, in the ultimate issue, where does this depression come from? Mind. Even deeper. It's the suffering of the soul feeling separated from Krishna. That's what it is. You know, the soul deep inside feels unhappiness, that I'm separate from Krishna. And when this is strong enough, this sentiment, then this super subtle sentiment turns into a subtle sentiment, it's experienced on the mental platform as depression. The further a person goes away from Krishna, the more sad he becomes inside. And therefore, rich people, famous people, many of them, they're so far gone from Krishna, running into the world, bigger, till there, he shoots himself. You know, that's it. That's what it is. Even the law of gravity, Prabhupada said there is no law of gravity. It's actually Balaram. The attraction between bodies, like the more you get into the gravity of the soul, of the moon, the more you become attracted. The more you go to the gravity of night, you become attracted. It's based on attraction. And so ultimately, it's between Balaram and you. Everything, and Balaram between some body, it's all based on the attracting power is Balaram on a very deep spiritual level. All the laws that we have, there are spiritual laws behind it. Ultimately, even persons, you know. And so this would happen when people become very unhappy. Then they can't take it anymore. And normally you have to run around in a subtle body for a long time. I give you an example. One devotee, Paramadveti Alanath Das, he became temple president in Rio de Janeiro. And when he was running the temple, there was a group of people, they were all dressed in black, same dress, etc. They were very active in kirtan, they helped, they cleaned the temple, etc. And he asked them, well, what is this? Who are you? He said, well, we can't talk about it, but we want to serve. And so it went on for a long time. Then one of them became the treasurer. And he became close to the temple president. He said, let me know what you are, tell me. He said, you won't tell anybody? I said, yes. I said, we follow one ghost. His name is Ram Tasi. And he has been banned from India due to some offenses. And he was the Ram Bhakta, Sita Ram. Tasi, Sita Ram. And he said he's here since hundreds of years. Even our ancestors worshipped him. And he said one day, and it was passed from generation to generation, there will be people arriving here, singing and dancing, shaved heads, tilak on their forehead. When they come, serve them. As soon as you start serving them, I will be able to go back to my field of activities. I can go back to India. So that's what actually happened. They're evil ghosts, but they're also holy ghosts. This was a devotee. You see, this was a holy ghost. And so you can collect stories from all over the world. You find always the same subject. There's somebody who is out of his body and suffers. In the case of a devotee, this guy was already 500 years in a ghostly body. In the case of devotee, Krishna can do anything. That although Putana tried to kill him, and she had to be killed, at the same time, on a spiritual level, he established her as a mother in the spiritual world. See, there's a spiritual side to it. You know, even if the devotee does that, it's not good. Prabhupada said that when one of our devotees killed himself, should be avoided. But if it does, it depends. If he has some great purity there, then Krishna will relieve him from that form, and won't allow that he errs in the body of the ghost for hundreds of years. That's what happens. So I thank you very much. This was my last lecture here. It was, I must say, great fun. Even kirtan. We have to understand. Let me just check this one thing before I go. Yeah, I want to leave the class with 1 second, with bang. Can you record loud what's here on this computer? The sound? Is it possible to record that? Maybe with a microphone? Just holding the microphone to the computer. I wanted to show you something, what our life is supposed to be about. 1 second. Yeah, that comes. Krishna, Krishna, You see how the people reacting, hardly reacting. They're like dead bodies, they cannot appreciate the kirtan. The only people who are reacting are actually Middle East and Indian people. You can see this. They're reacting. The Germans are like machines. They walk like this, You can't relate to the kirtan at all. Sound? It is in Munich on the main street, Germany. The Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna, we are very grateful to His Grace Prithu Prabhu for coming here and giving his very enlivening and enlightening association. I was very fortunate to have him heard. We all were very fortunate to hear from him Prabhupada Katha on Friday or so, and then again yesterday also, and now also such a nice enlightening. I missed some of the part, but then more than anything else, what we appreciate is Prabhuji's enthusiasm, his loyalty to Srila Prabhupada. Years have passed. It's a complete life of perfection, completely dedicated to Srila Prabhupada and his teachings and whatever. So we want to perfect our lives also. Okay. So we also want to perfect our lives somewhat the way he has done. So for that we need your association, Prabhuji. So we request you to come again and again whenever it is possible. Keep Pune also as one of the places in your itinerary, and let us get benefited by your kind and very enthusiastic association. So let us thank Prabhuji by loudly chanting Hari Bol! Hari Bol! Hari Bol! His Grace Prithu Prabhu ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.
You have to now go take prasada. Who is the youngest boy? One of the boys in the back there.
Hare Krishna, please come.
Thank you very much for coming. Keep on going. This is a fantastic movement. There's no loss. You cannot lose in the Hare Krishna movement. Outside of ISKCON, there isn't anything that is as good and as perfect as this, because this is Krishna's movement. Wherever there's Krishna, there's victory. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. And what is your name?
My name is Sangarsh. Sangarsh.